is closely related, and the reason is closely related. That's what I'm going to explain in this video and why it is like that. Spiritual awakening is the realization you're not your thoughts, not emotions, not the body, not the impulses, and you are the permanent beingness in which everything is just temporarily observed. Literally everything else. There's only the silent permanent self, which is permanent, and everything else is just temporary. Everything, literally everything that you perceive is temporary. And the more you recognize that distinction, the more you kind of let go and can let go, because you recognize there's nothing to be achieved. And by letting go, something else happens. Is as you sit in the silence and marinate in the self, the true self, the silent self, in the body, in the auric body, in the psychoenergetic field, the energies start to push up from the bottom upwards. It's kind of like Ramana said that Kundalini awakening happens by itself as you abide in the self. And so all the energies push up, and you will start to feel where the blockages, where it's hindering to further flow up. And if you relax into it, if you don't commit to a new story but just let go of everything, then the energy opens up even above your crown chakra, and then it literally expands over your crown chakra. So it literally expands um much further out. And that's where I say you have these nadis. Nadis are energy channels in the body. They connect the chakras basically. And when you completely let go, then the old karmic things still stuck in your energy field start to bubble up. And these nadis, like especially the three most important nadis, Ida, Pingala, Sushumna, the Kundalini, snake, that's where the emotions attach to, and then they start to flow up, and that's where you start to feel pressure. That's why a lot of people have this cathartic release when they spiritually awaken, because that's the first time they're letting all these stuck emotions in the psychoenergetic field to rise up. Because what we're actually doing day in and day out, while we're not aware of the self, we are suppressing by our behavior. It's almost like a cope mechanism. We're suppressing by thinking, by controlling. We're suppressing all these emotions constantly downwards. And as you go into something like vipassana or abiding in the self, and you let everything rise, and it attaches like to these nadis as kind of like elevators. So the nadis are, you think of them like elevators, and when you relax, when you totally relax, then the emotions, the unresolved emotions in your psychoenergetic field, they kind of open up as an energy cloud attached to the nadis, and then they start to flow up. That's why people cry. A lot of people don't know what crying really is. Crying is actually the ultimate form of therapy. Crying is that energy field that is, let's say, stuck, let's say in the sacral chakra, in the solar plexus, wherever, heart chakra, that the old emotion attached to the nadi starts to rise up. You feel the pressure. Sometimes you feel like here you cannot let it go even further, but the awakened being can let it go. They don't identify with, for example, the dense, suddenly like throat or something. So they let it flow up even more, and then you feel the pressure here. You feel the pressure around your eyes, and then you cry it out. And now I'm gonna say something super interesting. Almost all pressures in the body that you feel, almost all pressures, like let's say you have a headache, or you feel pressure around the eyes, behind the eyes, in the throat, wherever, almost all the pressures that you feel are unresolved emotional psychoenergetic clouds that are stuck in that energy field and haven't been released yet. And the moment you understand that, I'm gonna write about it also more in my free book. But the moment that you understand that, you can let go so much that this energy cloud can be cried out through the eyes. You let it rise, and thereby the pain immediately goes away. This is absolutely. I did this in so many of my tantra sessions where I was doing, these massive amounts of tantra sessions with women. Is I did this over and over again. For example, I had a fitness girl, like a IFBB model. She had pain in the shoulder, and I did exactly this, that I helped her, that the energy uh kind of like releases, then it's cried out, and then the pain goes immediately away. And most of the pressure points, when they're cried out, when they attach to the nadi and are cried out, the pain goes away. So how spiritual awakening related to cleansing of the body is basically, the less you identify with the story and the trauma as it rises, because most people, as it rises, become like anxious, so they press it down again. But the awakened being can let it rise and is not fearful of it, because you recognize you're not that. So even if the fear is tremendous, like existential death, fear of death, which is, the strongest fear that you can have, the fears of, even if that energy rises, you're not fearful of it, because you recognize that you're not that. You're the infinite consciousness. And as you let it rise even more and it's cried out, then you suddenly start to feel free. Because what's actually happening is that the deepest seated fears, the deep seated fears and the deep seated emotions and traumas that you hold on to are being released completely for the first time. Whereas any other therapy, any other modality, you're actually still suppressing a part of it. So that's why there's a massive difference between someone who's fully awakened or enlightened energetically also, versus a person that is doing, different kind of modalities in order to heal themselves. Because the last instance of complete freedom is the letting go of identification with the body, because you realize that the self that you are cannot die. And at that moment in time, you are able to release all of those fears from the root chakra, which is the hardest to release, because it's easy to release the higher up you are at active consciousness level here, or close to the eyes. The higher up you are, the easier it's to release. Like if you feel a throat closure because there's some old trauma emotion, it's super easy to release through the eyes, but it's very hard to release the root chakra fear, which is mostly death, because it's the most intimate fear, you could say. It's the identification with the body. And then there's something which I call nadi breathing. I kind of figured this out. I should be talking much more about the modalities that I figured out, just so you can understand a little bit. So let's say you have a migraine, or you have some pressure here somewhere. It doesn't matter, here in the shoulders, wherever. Okay, what you should do is start doing nadi breathing. Nadi breathing is where you go from your eyes to the pressure point and back and forth while breathing in and out. So let's say I had here a pressure point where I'm like, it feels dense, it feels like, oh my god, it's there's something going on, or I feel pain in the neck, or I have a migraine here or behind the eyes. Imagine that, let's say I had a pain here, okay? Then what I'm gonna do, and I feel pressure here, then what I'm gonna do is breathe back and forth between the front of my eyes and this point. So I'll go like in, out, in, out. And I keep doing that until I open the nadi, which connects that pressure point with my eyes, and thereby that energy field is being released, comes to the eyes, and wants to be cried out. And immediately then the pain is gone. You have to try it to understand how it works. Uh this is If you understand this, it's completely revolutionary, because you're never gonna need, or I don't want to say never, but you're gonna rarely need pain relievers and all of this stuff, because you realize it's just a stuck psychoenergetic field, stuck emotion in your psychoenergetic field. And that also goes for the liver, for example. If people have anger in the liver, a lot of people drink alcohol because they try to numb down the anger they feel in the liver. And but if you release the anger, which is also hard to do, because if it's strong anger, it's hard to release. But also do the breathing between the eyes and the liver, and you can even do tapping, right? So you do tapping, and at the same time you do the breathing, and then you release all that anger. It's gonna come out because it's flowing across the Pingala Nadi. It's gonna flow across the Pingala Nadi, and you will be able to cry it out mostly on the right side through the right eye. If it's something on the left side, the feminine energy, because the right side is the masculine energy, the left side is the feminine energy, you're gonna cry out the left side, depending on which area you have a problem with. And I should be talking about this much, much more, because I'm an absolute master energy healer in these things. I just know exactly how the body works in this regard. And so I should share it more, and I should also publish it in my book a little bit more in detail. So, uh, but if you want the ultimate release at the end, after doing the tapping, after doing the nadi breathing, if you want the ultimate release, you have to do the vipassana. You have to recognize that you're not the body, you're the permanent, unbroken, unwavering, untouchable self in silence. And then after, I can tell you, like, if you're really letting go, marinating in the self, it takes about 15 minutes before the energy starts to open up so much that it starts to go above the crown chakra. Because most of the time when we're thinking, we're holding the energy right here. So most of the time when we're thinking, we're holding the energy right here, or in the solar plexus, or both. Because I'm trying to control, which is solar plexus. I'm trying to think, which is over here. And you're actually blocking that energy. The moment you stop thinking, the moment you completely let go, after 15 minutes, that kind of routine of blocking the energy opens up, and you start, if you're super sensitive like I am, you will start to feel the tingling sensation over here. And there will be no thoughts, and all of this stuff will open up, and you will feel that. And if you're sensitive. And so it happens usually around 15 minutes of complete silence sitting like this. And then you stay in that even longer, and then all of the other stuff, the more you kick back, I call it the kickback is when you're resting as the self without being distracted by anything else. The more you are kind of anchored in that truth, the more your psychoenergetic field starts to like bubble all the old mud and all the old karma, the old vasanas. It starts to all come up without exception. It's kind of like you have like a pot, and at the bottom of the pot there's dirt, but because the heat and the water is so hot, it stirs up that old dirt, and it's starting to come up. And this is very, very super intense. And that's why a lot of people, when they do vipassana, they do a lot of crying, all of this stuff. And this is what Mooji also says, it's kind of like bubbling up. And when that real kickback happens, the absolute kickback of realization that you're none of that, that you're the unimagined, impossible, formless self, then you're gonna have to kind of like because it's really that kind of, can be that intense, letting go of all these things. So it's highly interesting also to watch and understand. And so I wish you good success with it, and I'll definitely talk about it more.